Am I the asshole for giving my part of the inheritance to my brother when my sister needs it for her IVF? My 34M father, 65M, died a few months ago and his estate is now being divided between me and my 2 siblings. I have enough money and don't really need the inheritance. My siblings and I were talking about the money hat is supposed to be divided 3 ways. I'm childless, my brother, 33M, has 3 small kids and my sister, 41F, has been trying for a baby for over a decade now. I told them since I don't need the money, I'm thinking of giving it to my brother, because he has been struggling financially and can use the money. My sister asked if I could instead give it to her for her last round of IVF. That would cost her share plus my share of the inheritance, as it's her LSST chance to have a baby. I told her I'm sorry, but our brother doesn't have much money and has 3 kids depending on him, so I feel that it's better he gets my money. She asked me if my brother's kids are more important than hers and I said, well yes. The living children take priority over the imaginary. She was very hurt, called me an asshole for 1, not helping her out, and 2, insulting her and belittling her struggles. ETA. I don't have children myself because I struggled with infertility during my relationship with my ex. So I know where my sister is coming from. Some commenters said to put this info here in the post. Not the asshole. You could have worded that to your sister a little nicer, but you're not wrong. Infertility is really, really hard. Finding out you're not pregnant again is devastating. Even worse if you get pregnant and miscarry. I feel for your sister and what she's going through. But there are 3 young children who need food, clothes, a roof over their head, warmth, enrichment. 3 birthdays a year and 3 lots of presents at Christmas. 3 pairs of feet that outgrow their shoes in the blink of an eye. 3 actual real human beings who are already here and need to be taken care of. It's incredibly selfish of your sister to demand the money for another round of IVF. That will likely end in more heartbreak anyway, when your brother's family needs it way more. Not the asshole. Not the asshole, but dude. Learn to keep your mouth shut about what you do with your money. You could have just quietly given it to your brother and kept it between the 2 of you. So that was an asshole way to go about this. But in general, don't talk about your money with anyone, especially family who feel entitled to it. One word kinda screwed you over. You should have said, potential, instead of, imaginary. Other than that, I agree with you. Not the asshole. Your brother has kids here now that need to be supported, and letting them struggle because she wants to have a baby isn't right. If you wanted to be fair, you could divide it between them and then there's no hard feelings. Or you can go as far as setting up savings accounts for each of the children already here for college or car fund when they're older. That way you aren't giving it to either sibling and the kids still benefit. Okay, look. You're not the asshole for wanting to give the money to your brother, but you are the asshole for the way you said it to her. Imaginary? This woman is struggling with infertility. It's a physical, emotional, and mental struggle and takes a huge toll on anyone struggling with it. Please be kind. Am I the asshole for telling my wife that she doesn't need to be with her sick friend at the hospital? So my wife has a friend from childhood named Anthony. I'm being completely honest here when I say that he and I don't get along. It's not like he is rude or disrespectful, nothing like that. But all I feel towards him is annoyance, sort of speak, because of how much my wife sees him. He lives alone and now suffers from a medical condition, cancer, that requires him to go to the hospital regularly to receive treatment. I found out that my wife promised him to go with him to his every chemo treatment as support. She said it's a commitment she made to be there for him during this rough time since he has no one else besides him. Okay, I had no issue with that at first, but then this started affecting me. E.g., I can't go see my friends because I have to stay with my son on X day so my wife could be with Anthony for his treatment, etc., etc. I've talked to her about it, but she said that Anthony needs company and that she's just being supportive and this is when he needs her the most. I let it go, but last week was just kind of my last straw. Anthony had a other chemo session treatment and my wife wanted to go with him and asked me to stay home with our son. I told her I had a meet up with my mom and sister to eat lunch and that I won't be home. She said she needed to go be with him and I kind of flipped out at her and said that she doesn't need to be with him and could literally go see him at home the next day or something. She threw a fit and called me cruel for forcing her to leave Anthony by himself since she's all he has and that I was making her look bad. She also said my appointment with mom and sister wasn't as important as a chemo session, but I decided to just leave to end the argument. She ended up staying at home but kept ignoring me when I got back, calling me selfish for not letting her be there to support Anthony with what he's going through. Some of her girlfriends think I'm being a controlling jerk with no consideration for Anthony and what he's going through. Am I the asshole? You are the asshole. You just conveniently can only see your friends on days that Anthony has chemo treatments? Why can't you plan around them if they're pretty regular? It's no different than if it was your wife's family member. Also, why can't your kid come with you to see their grandma and aunt? You are the tiniest bit inconvenienced by all of this. Meanwhile, someone very important to your wife has cancer and you're mad at her for spending time with them? You sound jealous and petty. Info: why is the childcare of your son primarily your wife's responsibility? You are the asshole. She's supporting her friend through cancer treatment. Chemo is scheduled well in advance, so if you can't work around those appointments, that's on you for not being able to work a calendar. I told her I had a meet-up with my mom and sister to eat lunch and that I won't be home. Is your child chained to the furniture? Why can't you take your son with you to lunch? I kind of flipped out at her and said that she doesn't need to be with him and could literally go see him at home the next day or something. You don't need to go to lunch. You don't need to go meet with your friends. You could go see them the next day. If you can't see that helping a friend who is going through chemo is more important than going to lunch, then that's on you. Looks like I'm early. I'll pop back in a few hours to hopefully see that you've been completely nuked for this. You are the asshole. Suffers from a medical condition. Cancer, it's life or death, not a condition. Do you have a heart? You are the asshole. Your son should be a higher priority than you going to lunch or hanging with your friends. Also, chemo is hell. Nobody should have to go through it alone. If Anthony has only your wife for support, so be it. You are the asshole. I hope no one in your family ever gets cancer. Chemo appointments are horrible and your wife will honest to God need emotional support after having to watch her friend deal with chemo. It's 1 day a week. You watch the kids. Wife either watches her friend die slowly and painfully or he gets better but is still sick and has long-lasting health issues from the chemo. Wife has to witness this as it happens. You have the better end of the deal by far. Am I the asshole for telling my sister I will no longer give her my breast milk? I, 28F, had a stillbirth 5 weeks ago. My sister gave birth to a healthy baby boy 4 weeks ago. After my stillbirth, I was producing milk and pumping, and my sister couldn't breastfeed after her son was born. Formula shortage was awful and I was literally throwing my milk away, so I offered it to my sister and she gladly accepted. I was advised by the doctors to pump for 3 weeks after the stillbirth to prevent problems for me, and then stop, otherwise I'd just keep producing milk. Due to the formula shortage, I have been pumping for 5 weeks now, to give the milk to my sister. Now that there is more formula in stock and she has been able to go buy it, I told her I'll stop pumping. She told me her son has stomach problems after the formula and asked me to keep pumping. I told her I emotionally cannot handle it any longer. She said I am being selfish and she already has to feed her son by bottle, because she at first suggested I just nurse him for his daily feedings, at least we live next door, and I refused. I told her I'm sorry and I can pump for a few more days so she can put some in the freezer and have some back up until she finds a better formula for her son, but she said breast milk is healthiest and I should just help her out. She called me a selfish asshole and said that I am the embodiment of misery loves company. My mother feels I should help my own sister out. My husband said my sister is way out of line. I feel really awful because I could still help her out and I know she needs it. Not the asshole, your husband is right. I'm sorry for your loss. Not the asshole, your husband is right. You shouldn't be bullied into continuing your milk production and then pumping when this is time for you to grieve. You were kind enough to continue for 2 additional weeks, she needs to be grateful and move on. Not the asshole. Sister is way out of line. This is for your own health and even if it wasn't, you are not her personal milk machine. Not the asshole. First of all, I'm so sorry for your loss. Your sister is being incredibly inconsiderate even asking that of you. You were very generous to help her as long as you did. Right now, you have to do whatever is best for your mental health. Not the asshole. I'm so sorry that you're going through this. I can't imagine how awful it must be. I think you really went above and beyond to help your sister, and for her and your mother to expect you to keep putting yourself through that when you've expressed that it's too traumatic for you shows a deep lack of empathy. It's not misery loves company at all, it's self-care. And I think perhaps the best thing to do would be to have a little bit of distance from your mother and sister for a while and just focus on being kind to yourself and moving through your grief with your husband in whatever way you need to. Pumping is awful. I would pump for hours trying to produce milk that never came and I cried and cried over it. I cannot even imagine what has been like for you. That must be absolute hell. Your sister is a selfish entitled aw. You, sweetie, are not. I'm so sorry for your loss, and take care of yourself. Am I the asshole for asking my son to get a paternity test? My son, 18, has found out one of his ex-girlfriends is 8 months pregnant. He knew nothing of the sort of her being pregnant until now, and now he's just expected to accept everything, no questions asked. My daughter, 20, is good friends with this girl and knew about her pregnancy but said nothing to us because her friend asked her not to. My son was head over heels for this lady, but she ended up breaking his heart by cheating on him and was very needy and manipulative. He spent a lot of money on her because she would ask for gift my son couldn't even afford and convince him to use one of my credit cards to achieve it. My daughter, who isn't currently living with us and is actually rooming with her by her college, is also being manipulated by her and thinks she only does good and doesn't believe that she convinced her brother to use my credit or that she even cheated. Showed up with my son's ex-girlfriend at my door to help her tell us that she's pregnant. When I seen her there at my door visually pregnant, I knew she was gonna be saying that my son is the father of her child and immediately said that my son will not be putting in any money or time until there is a paternity test proving that is his child. My son backed me up and agreed. My daughter was horrified by my comment and accused me of encouraging him to be a deadbeat father and was upset I didn't even give them a chance to explain themselves. My son's ex starting crying, saying you always assume the worst of me and that she went 8 months of pregnancy alone and the least we could do is ensure she is taken care of for the betterment of his child. I do agree that if this is his child we gonna ensure mom is doing well to ensure baby is doing well, but I don't want my son to be involved with her only to get his heart broken again and only to find out that the child isn't his. Am I the asshole here? Just a quick update. My daughter and I spoke on the phone. I explained to her that if the baby really is his, then the text will only lock in his responsibility for the baby and that there is no way I'd ever encourage my son to abandon any of my grandbabies. My daughter finally agreed that the test would be beneficial and told me she'd call me back later. I ended up getting a text back instead of a call asking if they could come back over to talk, which I agreed to. When they came over, my son's ex admitted to not actually knowing who the father was and that she'd been in a relationship with multiple guys, which is why she took so long telling my son, because she was trying to figure out who's the father of her child, but she's now certain it's my son. She agreed to do the paternity test as soon as we able to do one on the condition I pay for it. One other thing I found out is that my daughter and my son's ex have actually developed a romantic relationship, which is beyond shocking to me. I mean, it explains why she been sticking up for my son's ex as much as she been doing, but it's just not something I thought my daughter would ever do. I mean, that's her brother ex, someone who break his reet. It's just not something I can understand. I'll always love my daughter, but it just hurts me seeing my son feeling really hurt by this whole situation. Not the asshole. I need a paternity test because you cheated on me. How can you say that? Don't you trust me? No. Because you cheated on me. Finn. Not the asshole. A paternity test in this situation is completely reasonable. Did she give a reason for not telling him until it was far too late for him to be involved in other decisions? Encouraging him to be a deadbeat father. Until that child is proven to be his, he isn't a father and cannot be a deadbeat. Not the asshole. This 100% sounds like a scam. Your son is just the best choice financially. Not the asshole. She went through 8 months of pregnancy alone because she chose not to tell him. That's completely on her. A paternity test is the wisest choice. Not the asshole. It is well within your right to ask for a paternity test. Not the asshole. She's had 8 months to come forward and waits until the very end of the pregnancy to do so? Sounds like she got dumped by the other dude and is looking for a baby daddy that'll take care of her.